Hello everyone, it's Ariel back. This time eating breakfast at 2:45 p.m. Yesterday was probably the closest I came to giving up on this challenge. It was definitely the closest I come. And the reason for that is that I just had a really hard time just allowing myself to be bored. I was just constantly just glued to my phone. Like, I was literally like Wikipedia or like ChatGPT or like some other shit. I just had to like, I felt this ravenous hunger to just consume information. Well, in reality, it was just to consume anything. Whether it was a video or this or that. And the way that I tried to like mitigate myself from like not going over the things I said I was not gonna do would be to just be Wikipedia, ChatGPT, like information. You know, I might as well be learning something. But it was really hard. I had a really hard time just like, you know, just like believing in myself and thinking that like, you know, is this something that I could do? You know, is this like, is there hope for me in terms of like growing as a person and you know, being someone who can change. But I think that's why I didn't post a video yesterday. I was like, you know, like this is bad. And so I told myself, you know what, then I'll post 2 today. You know, I'll post 1 later in the evening. But so far, there's been like, I'm starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Meaning like, I'm starting to see that now when I sit with my wife for lunch, like, I'm not using my phone. At all. At all. And that's good. And that's a win, and I have to recognize that. But this fly is very attached to me. Hey, buddy. Just swiping away notifications from my phone. But yeah, I mean, overall, today's better. Today is better. Thank God. Baruch Hashem. Like, I'm getting back into this like resilience mindset of like, now it's like, you know, even if I wake up, you know, really late, even if I sleep in, I'm not gonna give up on my day. I'm still gonna like fight for my day, and I'm still going to, you know, do the things that I need to be doing. I think a big part of that is to just not have my phone anywhere near me if I'm in my room, which is a big risk, which I can afford to take right now because I don't start my job for another month. But I think it's necessary for me to like basically, you know, even if it means not having an alarm to wake me up in the morning, to like just go into my room without my phone at like 9 p.m. and just don't have my phone in there. And I think that will be the step forward. See where that takes me. I'm back on my CPAP. Much better sleep already. The goal today is to reach out to my doctor and be like, okay, you know, like submit the request for ADHD medication. I think I have a really hard time like accepting that like ADHD is something that is part of my life because I was diagnosed much later as an adult after having like 6 therapists tell me over the course of my childhood, and like realizing how debilitating it has been to like my executive functioning. It's still hard for me to like accept the fact that like even with all the behavioral stuff, there has to be some kind of there has to be like a medical intervention. Because I've really tried so many different avenues. I think this channel is one of them. I think that I know it's a very controversial topic because there's just so many parents that I've seen that were just like turned my kid into a zombie. There are people that like took it as kids and they were like, I couldn't be myself, this and that. But then I've met people that were like, and myself included, that when we took it, I felt like it kind of unlocked who we were. You know, it felt like this fog lifted off our head and we were able to like be ourselves. And I think I'm just one of those people. I don't want to admit it because I never want to like think that like, you know, it feels cheap to be like medication fixes it, because then it's just, you know, part of you is always going to beat yourself up like, oh, why don't you just beat it through habits or through your actions, you know? But like, you know, I do therapy, I'm doing this channel, you know, I'm really trying hard to like fix the behavioral aspects of the impacts of ADHD, among other things. I think maybe in my case it's just a 3-legged stool, meaning that the third leg would be medication, and then with all those 3 things combined, I'll be able to stand. But yeah, I feel a lot of resistance in starting things, whether it's starting my day or starting my night routine or starting anything. And the funny thing is that it doesn't stop there. It feels like, for example, right? Let's say I start a book. It takes me to work up the courage to start a book. Then, in my mind, picking up that book each day to read it is another initiated task. It's not that, oh, I've already initiated reading this book, so it should be easy now to keep on reading the book. No, I have to initiate the task of picking up the book to read it and to continue reading it. And that's the perniciousness of this disease. or of this disorder, because it really is debilitating. After reading Scattered Minds, ADHD 2.0, Adult ADHD, like I've read a few books about it, looked at some peer-reviewed studies, and my brother also recently got diagnosed. And I mean, also from my own neuropsych evaluation, which literally took like 3 days. It was like actually like the most thorough thing I've ever experienced in my life. I feel like I have to prove to people that it's like a real thing, and that's the I'm realizing that that's kind of an internal shame about it, where it's like growing up, it was like, you know, even my mom in the last few months of her life, she was like, get off of it, like, you know, like you don't need it, and because she always, you know, she didn't really believe in like medication, things like that, and I feel like I have to prove myself and prove it to that, like, oh no, this really does affect me. This is a real thing. So it's interesting that even in this day and age, there's still this stigma around it that's internalized. Because I think also there's like, I've seen the other side of like, you know, like mental health denialism, which is like the opposite, which is just like the what to me feels kind of like ushy gushy, like safe space, and like, you know, like, you know, everyone's covered in rubber into like a rubber covered room, and it's just like everyone, it's all about safety, and it's all about, you know, protecting people's feelings. And part of me doesn't like that either, because I've been exposed to it, and I've been around it, because that's just how it is when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. And I don't know if I like that either. Like, I wish there was just kind of this like, I wish the people that had just like a level. I mean, I'm sure there are people that just have like a level-headed approach to this, which is that, you know, it is real. It is a real debilitating disorder, and it really does impact one's ability to executively function, which pretty much impacts every aspect of their lives, right? Because I mean, that's in essence, I mean, you know, everything's kind of predicated upon executive functioning, hence the term executive. And whilst that is true, right, I cannot bend the will of the world around me to suit that. I have to meet it in the middle. Meaning that, like, you know, I have to put in the work behaviorally, habit-wise, things like that, as well as medication, because it is my responsibility to, you know, if I need medication, to actually get it and take it. Because now I'm at a place where it doesn't only affect me anymore, right? My dysfunction also impacts everyone. Well, in reality, it's always affected everyone around me, but now it's much more in my face, and I'm actually coming to realize it. And I think that's part of what adulting is realizing that it's not all about you, and that your actions impact others around you, and that's an important thing to realize. But I think this is all to say that this process of seeking help externally, I think is simply kind of one of the next steps in this journey of getting my life together. Which is okay. That is an okay thing. It doesn't mean that I'm lazy. It doesn't mean that I'm copping out. It doesn't mean that I'm foregoing, you know, the hard work that's necessary. It's just simply a step in the process. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today. I've been struggling putting on tefillin over the past few days. That's something that's been impacting me for sure. I think also eating before davening, because according to Sephardic halacha, it's pretty strict that you're not supposed to, unless you like really really have to. And I think that impacts me because it's like, on one hand, like if I wake up so late, like I'm starving. But then also I feel like, you know, once you go like a day or two without putting on tefillin, it really does feel like the yetzer like takes a hold of you, where you're like, it becomes a lot harder to start again. And I think that today I just have to push through that and recognize that yes, it is after Chatzot Hayom, so you know it's too late. It's too late to say Shacharit, but I can still put on tefillin. I can still put on talit. I can still say Shema. I can still say the parshot for the tefillin, and then I can pray mincha in tefillin, in talit and tefillin, and that can be, you know, that's just where I'm at right now, you know, and it's not too late, and I can use this mitzvah to continue to do you know, teshuvah, to not give up, because I really think and I have faith that, you know, even when I mess up, right, if I show persistence and I show I'm not gonna give up, I'm gonna keep on going, I'm gonna keep on fighting, that in and of itself will have a merit. That and I know that it does. That in and of itself will have its merit. You know, because there's something fascinating that I learned in Masechet Chulin, daf, both basically daf Gimel through Hey. It's talked about multiple times, and there's actually a three-way disagreement on what the halacha is regarding this thing. But I'll kind of give you the abridged version. Basically, let's say someone eats treif. Let's say someone eats not kosher food. There are two reasons, basically halachically speaking. There's what's called a mumal ochel nevelot leachis. They're doing it to spite God. They're like, I don't believe in the Torah, God forbid. I don't believe in this. I don't believe in that. You know, I'm gonna stick it to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And because of that, they eat not kosher. Right? That person, for sure, cannot shecht. Like, that person, like, even if they do shecht everything completely right, you cannot eat from that shahita. However, there's a mumar ochel nevelot leteavon. It's because they can't help themselves. Right? They know in their heart what the right thing to do is. They just can't help themselves, right? Their yetzer it's too tightly held around them. But they keep fighting, and they'll keep trying, and, you know, God willing, they'll do, you know, teshuvah. But that person is allowed to shecht, as long as you check his knife. You check the knife, you give it to him. Which is almost like a form of like checking his yetzer. Like it's a form of checking his, and I'm intentionally using the term yetzer because I've been reading B'yam Dakecha, and I'm really understanding, you know, that like yetzer hara, yetzer hatov. It's like, in reality, like, these things are yetzer, and that the yetzer hara, quote unquote, is really just inclination. It's just drive, and it's just, you know, in this world, it's programmed to go after things that that are more towards the side of kalipa, tum'ah, things like that. But it can be trained to instead be inclined to go towards good things. Matters of kedusha. It's also my great grandfather, Zatzal, Rabbi Shimon Abukassis. He also, in his works, he only referred to it as yetzel. So for that reason, I'm sticking to that. But with a mumal ochad nevilot leteavon, you check the knife, because you're saying, like, I understand that you struggle with this, so I'm gonna check the knife. It's kosher, right? The knife is kosher, has no nicks in it. It's completely sharp. Here, take the knife, and then it'll shecht. The person will shecht, and then you can eat from that shechita, even lechatchila, even initially, even if it's not after the fact. And there's a powerful lesson in that. Meaning that, if a person comes from cynicism and spite and anger, it's very hard to pull a person out of a place like that. It's very hard for us to put faith in a person like that, because they're filled with anger, they're filled with spite, and that's a very hard thing to come out of. From personal experience, it's a very hard thing to come out of. That's why anger is like. In Igad Ramban, Nachmanides, he writes to his son, he says, like, always distance yourself from anger. Save yourself from anger. Do not come anywhere near anger, because it is like one of the worst traits to internalize and to let impact you, because it pretty much always leads a person to sin. It always leads a person to do the wrong thing. It doesn't mean to not experience anger and to not feel anger, but to not let it decide what you do. And meanwhile, if a person is genuinely trying, and I think I'm kind of relating this to my difficulty of putting on tefillin, of putting on talit and tefillin in the morning, or even throughout the day, as long as it's during the daytime, before shkia. Some people even say before tzed. But regardless, right, like, there's still hope, right? There's still, like, it's not saying there's no hope for someone who's, lech is, but, like, I think it's because they're not trying that it becomes difficult, right? Because the change has to come on their part. They have to be able to, they have to make the decision to see things differently, right? A mumal te'avon is someone who's just trying. They're failing, but they're trying. And because of that, we still give faith in them. We still, fine, okay, we check the knife, fine. But here you go. We trust you. So, there's actually a three-way machloket between Rishonim. It's either a two-way or a three-way machloket, where the Rosh, or as Ashkenazim say, the Rosh, he says you read that a Gemara exactly as it is, right? If it's specifically someone who it has to be the same, it has to pertain to the same idea that of the sin that the person's committing, meaning that it has to be leteavon, meaning that they can't help themselves, and it has to be with a sin that pertains to the subject in which we have to have faith in him for, right? Rambam, extremely strict. He says, if it's any kind of mumal leteavon, for any kind of sin, you have to check the knife. And then the Rif says nothing. If the Rif says nothing, that tells you that he doesn't hold by the Gemara. He doesn't agree with it. And that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean that he either agrees with Rambam, or he believes that, maybe even to the most extreme, that mumal te'avon, or maybe a mumal nevilot te'avon, shouldn't be given anything at all. But thankfully, both the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch both agree, and they hold like the Rosh. So what does that say? It says, that the mainstream idea is that we that we put faith in a person, as long as they're trying, they're really, really trying. So here's to trying, here's to continuing to go down the road of this challenge. And despite how hard it is, even if there are setbacks, even if you have 2 cookies on Shabbat, on Friday night dinner, you can come back from that. There's always hope. As long as you keep on trying, just keep trying. And I have faith, Be'ezrat Hashem, Yishtabach Shemo Le'ad, that there'll be a light at the end of this tunnel, and that change is possible, and that change will be possible for me, and it'll be possible for everyone else. So with that, thank you so much for listening and dealing with me swatting away this fly away from me, who's been a great friend of mine, apparently, through me eating and my ramblings, and kind of like I never know where these videos are going to go every time I hit record, but I'm always glad that I do, because I feel like I've gotten a lot more comfortable talking in front of a camera, and just recognizing that, like, it's as if I'm talking to like a collective you. It helps me to kind of get things off my chest. And again, I really hope that this stuff resonates with any of you guys. I appreciate any of you guys that watch. And I think, it's not for the reason of just like, because, views, this, that. No, I don't give a shit about that. But, for people that watch, I just really hope that at least something that I say sticks out to you. And I know that a lot of people who watch this probably are not Jewish, so they probably have no idea what I'm saying. And let me know if you want me to, like, if I start talking Jewish stuff, and doing, my Jewish talk, my yeshivish talk, I should say, then let me know in the comments if you want me to also provide kind of like a more like user-friendly version of that, that's more applicable, that's easier to understand to a general audience. It's just the kind of life that I live, so it's the language that I'm used to speaking. But anyways, with that, I'm gonna go. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys tonight.